Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of Portal Season 2024. This is episode number 24-2. My name is Tate. I'm publisher/Commodore at auburnsports.com, which I think is the best Auburn-centric website on the entire internet. Of course, I'm the publisher and owner at auburnsports.com, so you probably hope that I would have that opinion of our own work. Today, we've got a lot to get through on this beautiful, wonderful Thursday afternoon. We start with Maalik Murphy, the outstanding quarterback who signed with Texas out of high school. He's from California, signed with Texas, transferred to Duke, and finally got his chance to play last season. And he visited Auburn. He left this morning, actually, on Thursday morning. You can see the quote there. They're just open arms. You know what I'm saying? It's a good place, good people here. And so he had a good visit. My thing on Maalik Murphy is this. He's not a runner at all. He's a 60% passer this year at Duke. And we can talk all day about, and we need to because I don't know that much about Duke's offense, but 60% for a guy who can't run at all, you'd want to see something a little bit higher than that. I'm thinking like 65 to 70% because all of his value is concentrated in his ability to complete passes and get that ball thrown downfield. So to me, Maalik is probably not tier one target in the portal at quarterback, which is obviously a very important element of what they're doing as far as restaffing for next season. So for me, I think Maalik Murphy and then Ashton Daniels, the quarterback from Stanford, are the two guys that I think will be vying for that second spot to compete with the number one guy that they bring in who we don't know yet. Could it be Jackson Arnold? Maybe. Could it be somebody else? I don't know. But anyway, Maalik Murphy was technically the second one out. Singleton left very early on Thursday morning, like before the sun came up, and nobody had a chance to talk to him. So we will try to figure out what's going on with him as well. He's the wideout from Georgia Tech who can play slot, who can play outside, and we're told he's probably the fastest dude in the portal right now. Definitely someone to keep an eye on. Kenyatta, who works with Auburn and is kind of like the recruiting liaison, worked with him, helped get him to Georgia Tech. So Auburn's got a very good connection there, a good relationship with Singleton, and we'll see how that breaks down. Start going to the guys who were here today. Actually, Josh came in late last night, so getting close to midnight last night. So he's at Auburn right now. Josh, of course, played offensive line at Northwestern, a young man who's from Fenton, Michigan, which is about halfway between Detroit and Lansing. And he is considering Michigan State and also Ohio State. You know, he's getting a lot of interest from the teams up there that have seen him play. But he came down here. Auburn jumped on him very quickly in the portal, and he said that he has some kind of extended family that lives down here, some Alabama, some Auburn. I mean, hey, we can't all be perfect. But anyway, 6'5", 301 pounds, started 10 games this past season at Northwestern, 74.9 grade, playing at right guard this year for the Wildcats. The year before, he played right tackle. So at 6'5", 301, you're kind of thinking, maybe he has the body to play outside or inside, kind of like if you guys want to go back this far, Geno James, who played at Auburn back, late 90s, early 2000s. He's from Montgomery, played tackle at Auburn, played guard in the NFL, kind of has that portability. Josh said after his visit today, he'll basically play anywhere he's asked to, but he got the feeling that Auburn was kind of wanting to slot him in at guard, but he loves tackle too. Again, if it's Auburn and a bunch of Big Ten schools and he's from Fenton, Michigan, I feel like that's going to be a tough pull. I like what he brings. I think Auburn would benefit from having a seasoned, good guy to play on the right side. I'm thinking that we're going to try to get him to play tackle, but you couldn't really distill exactly what the plan was today after talking to Josh. But anyway, 3-star in the 21 class and signed with Northwestern straight out. So I love seeing these guys, 3-star recruit. I mean, that's solid. Kind of build his way up to getting interest from, big-time schools like Auburn, Ohio State, et cetera, et cetera. So Josh will be a guy to keep an eye on. Again, he still has 2 more visits to go, and I guess he's going to try to figure things out, I would imagine, next week. There's a guy that's super important, I think, and even though we've got Auburn's top needs there on the left side and it doesn't include safety, Zechariah Poyser is an absolute stud. I watched his tape today. I'm not real familiar with his game. I know Archie, one of our seasoned veterans on the bunker, lives up that way and spent some time watching Jack State this year and says this kid is out of this world. 6'2", 170, started 13 games in this past season for the Cox. Was kind of a backup last season as a freshman. So this is still a young player kind of coming into his own. And I want you to look at some of these numbers I got here. Allowed 33 catches on 69 targets this season. That is insane. There's no one at Auburn that has stats like that. This is a safety who can lay a lick, who can cover, who is rangy. I'm blown away by the fact that Poyser was not rated by rivals at all in the 23 class. We have a card for him based on Wildwood, Florida, where he played high school ball, which is just, I thought he was from the Villages, actually, but he's from right next to it, just a little bit northeast, I guess, of Orlando. But he's an outstanding player. He already visited LSU. He's been to Auburn. He's going to be going to Florida as well. So, I mean, this guy is absolute Rolls Royce when it comes to defensive backfield. And I think Auburn would absolutely love to have him. I know they have Eric Winters coming in. They've got New Boy Fagans coming in, 2 outstanding freshmen that they signed. And I think those guys are both, long-term solutions at safety, guys that can play a long time. But I think adding a guy like Poyser is an absolute no-brainer. This guy is a stud. And, I mean, I would give him an A+ as far as a portal element right now. An 80.8 grade from PFF for an entire season is nuts. This guy's really, really good. Here's what really intrigues me a lot. The more that I read about him, the more I like. Clev Lubin. He went by Clevmer in high school, or as they would say up in New York, Clevma. He's from Suffern, New York, which I learned I've never heard of it today. It's about 40 miles north of New York City. It's right on the border with New Jersey and New York. So he's kind of up from that way. And if you go about 10 miles north of where he's from, it's like wooded areas. So he's right at the edge of civilization, as it were. He was a 2-star recruit in the 21 class who signed with Army out of high school. And he was kind of a weird recruit. Obviously, he's from an area where there's not a lot of exposure. He really was kind of a tailback in high school. In 2020, if you remember, it was COVID year, so they didn't play a bunch of games. But I think he had something like 1,100 yards in 6 or 7 games. He was averaging 9.5 yards a carry. He had like 16 touchdowns. He was just an absolute stud as a tailback. He also played defensive end, but sometimes when you're in high school, particularly if you're not in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, defensive players is kind of hard to quantify. I mean, you remember when Jadeveon Clowney was coming up, and he played at a really small school over there on the eastern seaboard. I forget exactly what state, maybe Savannah or Columbia, South Carolina, somewhere over there. And like people were so in awe of him as a fullback. And I mean, he wasn't ever going to play fullback, but it was like that's the highlights people would see. And I think Clev Lubin, who's completely different than Jadeveon Clowney, he's up in the woods and nobody's really paying attention to him. I think they kind of thought about him as a tailback, even though that really wasn't his future. Anyway, he went from Army to JUCO to Iowa Western, where he was an All-American as a defensive end / linebacker. And he gets kind of picked up a little bit. Coastal Carolina goes after him, and he was an absolute stud. He's the first few games of the season, he was a reserve. And then he came on and started the last 6 games. And, I mean, finishes the season with an 86.1 grade is absolutely silly. That is a superstar-type grade. And you say, hey, JG, I mean, he's playing in Coastal Carolina. What about that league? Fair enough. But I think this kid would definitely be worth an opportunity here. This is the kind of kid that you've really got to keep an eye on because he's a good student. He's regimented. He's a fitness freak. And he's really come on. I mean, his game has just stepped up and up. And, again, he split time between defensive end and tailback in high school. Now that he's completely focused on defense, it's like he's becoming that guy, Somebody's going to be getting a absolute stud right here. And I think that he could fill that buck spot really nicely, and he gives you some added height and length beyond what J-Mac brought you last year. And J-Mac's awesome. He has an amazing motor, and I think he gets the absolute most out of his pretty small and compact body. But with Clev Lubin, you don't got to worry about that. He's an outstanding athlete. So when you look at Auburn's top needs, I think he would definitely be the solution at buck as far as the portal goes. Dallas Walker is another guy who is here right now. And you see number 3 on Auburn's top needs, nose guard. He's that guy. He's a 3-tech. He's a big 3-tech at 6'4", 318. But he played mostly nose at Western Kentucky and started 13 games this season for a pretty good team that went 8-5. 445 snaps is a lot for a guy that big. 61.5 grade from PFF is just kind of so-so, but I think sometimes it can be difficult to really appreciate the things that a good nose tackle does to help a defense because it's such a grimy position. You're taking on double teams constantly, and if you just kind of hold your gap and maintain good leverage against the double teams, that's a win as far as I'm concerned. And it's a win as far as DJ Durkin is concerned, Auburn's defensive coordinator. So to me, Dallas Walker could be the guy. He's not a superstar, but he's the guy that can plug those A-gaps and cause opposing offenses to have to reroute the runs, and that gives you better linebacker flow, and your ends can get involved, and then everything works from there. I really feel like Durkin wants a powerful, immovable object at nose, and I think that Dallas Walker could be a solution there. Signed with Texas A&M out of high school. He's from Nashville, Smyrna High School. 1 year at Texas A&M, then he moved over to Western Kentucky, back up last year, and then he started this year all the way through. So I like seeing these kids from smaller schools. You look at Clev Lubin from Coastal, Dallas Walker from Western Kentucky. I can't really say that about Duke and Georgia Tech, and Josh Thompson from Northwestern. But J-Mac came from a smaller school and was an outstanding player here. So I love seeing these guys kind of overlooked. Poisoner's another good one. Overlooked in high school, get somewhere, bust their ass, get better, and now they get noticed, and everything starts looking good for them. So I like what Auburn's doing here. Unlike last year where they kind of were chilling a little bit when the portal opened, they are getting very, very aggressive here, and they're going after the guys they want and the guys they need. I think they're doing well. Some of the bunker people were disappointed that Singleton got out of here without a commit. I don't necessarily know that we're in an era right now where you're going to get those immediate commits all the time. I still feel like Auburn is definitely in the front seat for that one. And then as far as Maalik Murphy goes, we'll just have to see how that plays out. I think he is a number 2 transfer quarterback. I don't think he's a headliner type player. That is my opinion. Anyway, guys, this is episode 2 of Portal Season. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you don't mind, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it just makes me feel better, and I appreciate that. I'll see you guys soon for another update when conditions merit. Until then, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. Love you guys, and peace.